Hi, everybody. My name is Derrick. I'm a sales engineer at Jamf. I've been with Jamf for about 5 years now. Prior to that, I've worked in higher ed and healthcare for the last 16 years. And joined here by Dave.
Yeah, hi, I'm Dave Goldberg. I'm a desktop engineer at Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, which is up in Newark, New Jersey, an old brick city. But I live in Philadelphia, which is why I'm wearing this Greater Philadelphia Mac Admins t-shirt. So shout out to anybody who is a member of that group as well. Full disclosure, Adam is my SC at Jamf. So
I am, yeah. Yeah, and it's funny because I actually just got to know Dave through community. So at Jamf, we have community user groups. So we originally met in Philadelphia, and we see each other about every other month, either in Philly or New York, and just became friends for the last couple of years. So.
Yeah, we were friends before he became my SC, so it was kind of a shock when I got that email.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining our session today. If you were here last year, we gave a introductory session on Jamf App Installers. So this session is going to be going over a number of different topics. And I think, let me just make sure my clicker's good now. There we go.
Yeah, they don't need to see us.
So we're going to be talking through what Jamf App Installers are, common pain points that are associated with packaging, methods for deploying applications. We're going to go into a live demo of the Jamf app catalog, and we're going to discuss a lot of new features that have come about in the last year that have been added based on feature requests from customers like yourselves. We're going to be going through how to dive through some of the limitations with app installers. Then we're going to round up with how to submit feature requests. If you have an app that is not in the app catalog, how you could get that app considered in there for review. And then finally, we're going to talk about the new, as of just a couple days ago, out of beta, the managed software update. So, and then we'll have plenty of discussion.
Okay, so before I show the graphic, I know that there are some people in this room and in this building that have a very stable and healthy relationship with packaging. I do not, but I look at someone like Rich Troughton. I've taken all his classes on packaging and everything like that, but I never could ever get into that relationship. Packaging to me, so that graphic to me right there, that is a triggering graphic. So is anybody like me? Does anyone love this graphic? Besides, I'm seeing Rich, I see Jeremy, but I don't see many hands. I don't see many hands at all. So we're going to go through these pretty quick because y'all know this. I mean, there are common pain points with manually packaging. It's time consuming, no ability to update. That for me is the big one. The fact that we had to package patches of that afterwards and no time schedule whenever that was going to come out. Dealing with Mac unfriendly installers, and we'll deal with one in particular a bit later. We don't have to deal with that right now. I don't want to derail this session before it starts. And it's distracting from other tasks. So these are all common pain points that you all know.
Cool. So we have a couple different methods out there of deploying applications. First and foremost, you have the App Store. The App Store is great, but a lot of very common applications that we use every day are not available out on the App Store. So how can we get those other applications deployed down onto our computers? Typically, that's done through a package, through an MDM, or a manual install. Believe it or not, people are still doing that. Or something like a third-party tool like Monkey.
Now, before MDM or anything like that, or before the app installers, I should say, this is kind of how we did things. And again, you all pretty much know this, but here's our friendly cloud that we get our friendly package, we hope. Lovely package. And then we would have to repackage that package to make sure that it had everything in there that we needed. Sometimes system extensions or some other installer were turned off by default. We would have to repackage it, change that integer from a 0 to a 1, or we would have to repackage it because the package that came down nobody liked and we couldn't upload it. So we had to repackage that, and then we had to upload that back to the mothership of Jamf Pro, both on-prem and now in the cloud. And then once we did that, we had to create a policy to deploy that installer with any scripts or anything to however scope we needed, whether it was individual machines, whether it was specific groups, smart groups, and then it would come down to our lovely endpoint.
And, with those policies, I can't tell you, every day I'm in customers and prospective customers, either demo Jamf environments or their current Jamf environments, and there are policies that are old, very old, that contain very old packages, very old scripts, and the policies are just, they're not being maintained and they're not being updated.
Oh, there's our fabulous endpoint.
So, like I mentioned, with the App Store, it's great for the applications that are made available on the App Store, but common apps like Teams, Zoom, Slack, Chrome, Edge, the Adobe suite, they're not available on the App Store. Obviously, it requires a VPP token. Believe it or not, I have some people that I work with that, for whatever reason it may be, usually something political, they can't use VPP, even though mostly everybody is. But and the notifications when there's an update, they can't be customized.
And let me add to that. VPP is another difficult relationship, I should say, particularly not knowing exactly when apps are going to come down, how long they would take. I have a real world situation with that. On Tuesday, I was at Weldon's GitHub and Git repo workshop, and I forgot that I needed Xcode. And so I sent my repository of Xcode down to my machine, and I was hoping that Apple wasn't still asleep at that time. And 42 minutes later, I had Xcode on my machine, thankfully. So with Jamf installers, the situation is a lot simpler, and Adam will go through that.
Yeah, so essentially in this case here, you have your Jamf cloud. On top of the Jamf cloud is going to be essentially deploying those applications that are contained within the app catalog, as Dave calls it, the mothership. And instead of us having to manually upload that package and manually deploy a policy, essentially it's just going to be a one-step configuration to go ahead and get that set up and go ahead and deploy that down to your endpoints. And we'll dive in. You'll have some visuals here in just a moment.
And as you could see, there's 5 elements, 5 graphics on that screen there, but only one of them we touch. The other 4, they magically go away.
Yep.
Bye bye.
Cool. You want to talk about some of the apps?
So last year at this time, there was maybe 80, under 90.
Yeah, definitely under 100.
So they've doubled that with some of the most popular apps that we use today. And forgive all my graphics. I was a graphic designer in my previous life. And I just wanted to give you all a visual on some of, well, actually most of the apps that are currently on this catalog. Okay, so that's a lot of negotiations with a lot of vendors.
Yeah, and we're constantly adding new applications into the app catalog, and we'll talk about what that process looks like. But about 2 years ago was when we initially launched the Jamf app catalog along with the app installers. Last year when I was here, when I was just speaking with people at the booth, a lot of people did not know that this existed, because who here in the room loves to read release notes? We now have release notes videos, which are much better, but a lot of people are not, even to this day, they're not aware of the Jamf app catalog and what it could do. So as you can see here, there's a lot of applications. Right now, I believe we're at 177. We just added another one like yesterday. We had to update this.
So it's September 30th, and I remember the date. September 30th, 2020, Jamf acquired Mondada out of Australia. Marcus, I don't know if you're here. You can attach to that. But and we were very excited for that. First, because of for the application Kenobi for Mac OS patching, we were thrilled. And we were also thrilled that they were able to purchase the app catalog that Mondada had. And we waited for that. And our hope turned to despair, which turned to rage. And I'm sure a lot of Jamf salespeople and a lot of Jamf SEs were tired of the questioning with what was going to happen with patch management. Because before this, the only thing of patch management as far as apps, it would tell you, oh, there's a patch available. You have to go get it yourself. You have to package it.
Yeah.
You have to do everything. It was almost mocking us. So finally, 2 years ago, the app catalog premiered. And it seems like every day, more and more vendors are allowing their products to be on this catalog.
Yeah, we started out initially, it was under 10 applications that were in the app catalog. Like I mentioned today, we're at 177 applications and growing. It's definitely come a long way since its inception, and definitely has helped to save a lot of man hours.
Oh, it has saved a ton of man hours. It is one of the greatest. I mean, I don't have the Jamf blue glasses on, so I can also talk. I mean, I can say things about Jamf that maybe he can't, but as far as reducing my workload for application management, it has cut it down to 90% of the work is gone. All right, there's still some apps that are not on the catalog that I keep bugging people like Adam when they're going to be on, but for the most part, I would say between 70 to 80% of the apps that we deploy at my company are on that app catalog. And that has saved a ton of time and saved a ton of work. Because also, not only can you deploy these things through an app catalog, the majority of them can also auto-update. So we don't have to worry about patching. We don't have to worry, and unless we want to test that and everything like that, but as far as updates go, if we don't touch it, it'll auto-update. In the background, no one knows.
So, Dave, that was like 70 policies that you no longer have to maintain, 70 packages.
Yep, all of that gone.
Jeez.
Deleted them all now.
Cool. When the first time that I attended this conference was in 2016. And that was back when I was a Jamf customer, and I remember walking up to the Jamf table, and I was like, hey, talk to me about patch management. And the Jamf rep that was there at that time just kind of laughed and was like, everybody's coming up and asking us about patch management. So in the console, we have the Jamf app catalog, but we also have patch management or patch reporting, which allows you to see the status of your computer or your endpoint and the versions of those applications. Over time, the Jamf app catalog is, as the amount of applications get added into the app catalog, the amount of use of patch management or patch reporting along with policies is probably going to start slimming down. Again, like Dave mentioned, you're able to just automatically have those applications update. And we'll talk a little bit about if you don't want an application to auto-update, what you could do with that as well. That's one of the newer features that we now have available. Cool. So we saw a lot of applications up there on the screen, but what happens if there's an application out there? I'll use CrowdStrike as an example. CrowdStrike is not in the app catalog, but everybody probably wants CrowdStrike to be deployed. Submit a feature request. So you could come to me, you could come to your SE or your Jamf account rep and provide that feedback, but submitting a feature request actually allows that to go out to other members of the community who could upvote those feature requests. In the past, we had a completely different system for feature requests. We moved over to a new system called AHA. We have really good insights into those feature requests. Again, you could just go in and search for an application or for a specific feature, and you'll be able to see if there's a feature request. If not, it's very easy for you to submit it. You know, we all network with one another out on Slack and things like that. So if you submit a feature request, send it to anybody that you're networking with, have them upvote it. There's also a really nice section in there for you to add comments. So, you know, you can upvote it, but being able to put a comment in that feature request stating how much time this is going to save you, things like that, that's going to be super informative. Jamf.it/software titles, that will take you to the most up-to-date version of the PDF document that has all the applications as of today that are in the Jamf app catalog. That way you don't have to go searching in your Jamf Pro. You get a nice list. That jamf.it link will always update to the latest, greatest link. If you never use the feature request portal, it's just ideas.jamf.com. It requires a Jamf ID, which pretty much if you have a Jamf instance and you're accessing support or our online training catalog, you're going to need a Jamf ID. In fact, you do not need to be a Jamf customer to sign up for a Jamf ID. We offered a Jamf training catalog to anybody. So you could create the Jamf ID at account.jamf.com, and that'll allow you to submit those feature requests.
I am on that website a lot. A lot. They hear from me a lot. I'm not bashful.
Yeah, and like I said, it's improved significantly. The other cool thing is for anybody in the room who is a Jamf customer, can we raise our hands, Jamf customer?
Oh boy, look at that.
Oh wow.
Well, you picked the right room.
Can I get a picture of that? Can we all raise our hands again? Wow, that's cool. That's awesome.
That's great for him.
To see everybody attend here. So for those of you who are Jamf customers, where was I going? Now I lost my train of thought. Oh, so for those of you who are Jamf customers, usually every year you have a renewal conversation with your Jamf rep. You also have a customer success manager. We have that Jamf Ideas portal available where we could actually look up the feature request that you're talking about and we could tag your account to it. So if there is something that's like you did upvote it, you did put comments in there, but you still want to, have somebody at Jamf look into that, bring that up with your CSM, bring that up with your account rep. We're able to dive into that. So what's the process like to get an application in the app catalog? So first off, there has to be an agreement between Jamf as well as the app vendor. In order for that to happen, there's a bunch of legal stuff that happens. It's just not as simple as us grabbing their package and making it available in the app catalog.
And keep in mind, it's a two-way street. They're coming to Jamf, and Jamf is coming to them.
Yeah. And a lot of app vendors are unaware of this. So same thing, like if you have an application that is not in the app catalog and you did submit that feature request to Jamf, go ahead and submit a feature request to that app vendor or talk to your CSM or your sales engineer at that organization, because chances are they just might not know that the app catalog exists. So when an application becomes available in the app catalog, what you're going to see up here is the app installer metadata. So I have an example here for Microsoft Edge, but you could see who published the app, what the bundle ID is, what version it is. In this case, as of this morning when I did the screenshot, Edge was last published on July 2nd. Typically, when an application gets updated, we're made aware that that application has been updated. We have our own internal security process that we go through before we go ahead and publish an application in the app catalog. It's not like a standard security process or review that's going to take a month. That team, typically when an app update becomes available, typically it's within an hour or two that it's going to get published in the app catalog. You could also see the source of where that application is coming from. So in this case here, we're seeing straight up that it's coming from Microsoft. So let's deploy an app. I'm just going to close out of here, and I'm going to open up my Jamf Pro instance. Let me throw.
There you go.
All right, that looks good up there. So we went ahead and upgraded the UI to Jamf Pro version 11 at the end of last year. So the UI looks a little bit different if you haven't been in here in a while. But we're making tweaks with every new version of Jamf that becomes available. You could see some new stuff like dark mode here. When it was first launched, it was super white and super bright, and it was killing everybody's eyes. So feature request came in for dark mode, and we made that happen. So we're in our Jamf Pro dashboard. Under content management, you're going to see Mac apps. And if we come in here to Mac apps, this is where we could see an overview of the Jamf app catalog. So today I have 4 apps in here. I have Dropbox, Microsoft Edge, Microsoft Teams, and Slack. You could see the deployment status. So you could see right now, live demos, gotta love them. We'll get right back there. Okay, so you could see right now we have 5 computers that Microsoft Edge is in progress of installing. The other cool thing with this is you could actually see what computers are qualified to have that application. So if there's a minimum OS that's required and you scope it to all your computers, you might have some unqualified computers, which is pretty nice. So you'll see here right now, we have status information. This is new since we spoke last year. So you can see right now in my environment, I have 5 computers that are qualified to have this application based upon the smart group that the app installer is scoped to. We could also see over here on the side how many computers that it installed on, how many computers that it failed on, and any unqualified computers as well. So if I go back a notch here, I'm going to go ahead and select new up here. And you'll see the first choice that I have is, do I want to deploy an app through the Mac App Store, or do I want to deploy it through the Jamf App Catalog? So in this case, I want to go ahead and deploy Google Chrome down to all my endpoints. I'm going to select the Jamf app catalog. And from here, you can see we got a lot of apps in here. Adobe takes up pretty much most of the first page.
Good times.
We also have a nice search functionality in here. So I'm just going to go ahead and type in Chrome in. Google Chrome pops right up. I'm going to select Add. You'll see it pops in here. I could change the display name if I need for self-service. So just like any packages or config profiles or policies that you make available in self-service today, you could modify what you want the display name to be, as well as things like the description, if you want it to be in the featured category. If you're using sites, you could assign it to a specific site. You could assign categories just like you can with your policies. And then you'll see this target group here. So the target group is essentially who you're going to be scoping this to. And this is one of the things with the app catalog where a lot of people get confused and they just stop because it does not provide the same experience as scope when you're deploying a Mac app through the App Store or a policy or a config profile. This relies on smart groups as of today. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. In this case here, you'll see all your smart groups. You could also search for a smart group as well. But I'm going to deploy Google Chrome down to all my clinical computers, so any computers that are in that smart group. And then you'll see your distribution methods. So do you want it to install automatically, or do you want it to install in self-service? Just like the Mac apps and the iOS apps, it always defaults to self-service. So you have to select install automatically. Below that, you'll see the update method. Now, who likes to deploy updates manually? I see like 2 hands, 2.5 hands, and a maybe. So what's great with, like an application like Chrome where you have a new version becoming available every couple days, if not multiple times a day, we can go ahead and automatically patch that application for you and provide a really nice end user experience. So you'll see this end user experience tab up here at the top. So you could customize what you want the experience to be like for your end users. So if the app requires a force quit, you could define that message. If you want to provide a grace period, update complete message. If you want to suppress any notifications for any reason, that can all be done in here. My favorite thing though is this update deadline. So you could come in here and you could say, hey, you have 2 days to update Chrome. After those 2 days, it's going to automatically go ahead and update, and that's where some of those messages up here up at the top to go ahead and force quit the application, that's where those become applicable.
And keep in mind, again, none of this was here last year.
Yeah.
So when it came to updates or anything, you were just flying blind. Yeah. And one of the many reasons why I was on ideas.jamf.com quite often was for this.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff in here, it's new. It's really nice. Emily, aka Dr. K, she's on the Mac Admins Foundation. She is our internal Jamf Pro administrator at Jamf. So she manages this MacBook and all of our devices. She's really gracious. She gives us like a week for most applications. She does like little cute messages in self-service that'll pop up and say, an update for Chrome is available, please update with a smiley face and then love IT or something like that. But it's in your face and it makes you want to update right away. But she gives us a week. You will get bugged with notifications. Now you have 2 ways for those updates to be applied. So you can have the update go ahead and deploy automatically, or you could have it be manual. So somebody could go into the self-service portal and just go ahead and select update, and they could update at their convenience. If you have any additional settings that need to be deployed, like PPPC as an example, you could attach a configuration profile as well.
This is huge, particularly if it's security software. If they ever get CrowdStrike, there are 4 payloads in CrowdStrike alone that you have to use your configuration profile. That without this function would be very, very difficult to apply.
Dim the lights up front. It's just hard to see that. Switch the white light. Or switch out of dark mode.
Oh, I mean, I could switch out of dark mode. My apologies about that. Be prepared. Oh, well now it's a party in here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cool.
Oh, it's like it once was.
With manual mode selected, you do still have to say make available in self-service, or you do not?
Yes, you still have to say that you want it to be made available in self-service. Yeah. Otherwise, you would have to come into the app catalog, select install automatically, select save, and then watch your deployment status, and then essentially toggle that off afterwards.
Because I noticed that when you check the manual box, the self-service box did not automatically check.
Yeah. Yep. And there's also some other stuff in here with self-service, and my apologies while I get back in here since I changed it to light mode. So we're going to deploy Chrome. So there is, like, if I come in here and I say, hey, I want it to be manual, and I want it to install, but I want that to be made available through self-service. This is also where you could come in and just like with a policy in Jamf Pro, you could say, hey, somebody has to read the description. We want this to be in the featured category. And then what you could do here in the end user experience, you could customize those notifications for self-service. Cool. You'll see this deploy button up here at the top. So like, let's say that you have to go through a cab, or if you have to go through any kind of change management, anything like that, you could set this up and you could just come in here and select save. It's going to go ahead and add the application into your app catalog, but you'll see right now it's disabled. So when you're ready to go ahead and make the application available, you're simply going to come in here and select deploy. Once you select deploy, and I'm just going to come in here and choose my smart group. Now I'll be able to see that deployment status. Right now it's trying to go ahead and deploy that down onto 5 computers. So that's how simple it is to go ahead and deploy an app. Yeah, it looks like we got a question. Can I throw you to Catchbox?
I was just going to ask, what version of Jamf Pro are you running with?
I'm running 11.6 at the moment. Yeah. And 11.7 was just released like 2 days ago. So.
With
Cool.
some really good stuff.
What's that?
It drops next week.
Yeah. You can always request, if you want to be on it right away, you can request it through your SE or your CSM. But yeah, for most people, the update's going to be next week. Cool. Yeah, so now we got Google Chrome deployed in this case. Now, typically in the past, what we would have had to do, we would have had to come in here. We would have had to come to computer management. We would have had to go ahead and upload our package for Chrome. And once we did that, then we would have to come in here and go to policies, and we would have to make a policy. And once we had that policy set up to go ahead and, deploy Chrome,
Who wants to work that hard?
now we have to wait for the Jamf agent because we're going to have it set to the recurring check-in. Then you got to attach the package. And then you got to choose your scope. So a little bit more involved the old way with the policies. Yes, we got a question over there?
Yeah, question about all those Adobe packages. If that's
Oh,
right.
we're going to get to them.
We're gonna get that
Well,
probably about 5 minutes.
We're
Yeah.
going to get to them.
Yes.
So, does the Mac apps or the catalog, does that take over a policy, like for update-wise, if you had them scoped, like say to the same target group?
Yeah. Good question. Have you encountered that before, Dave?
They
Yeah. 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 So the question was, if you already have a policy in place, and this is why I'm leaning on Dave because he did this with 70 of his policies. So if you already have a policy in place, and then you go ahead and you deploy the app through the app catalog, what's that update process going to look like?
here's what I discovered when I did that. Most of the policies, the managed command that's coming from the Jamf catalog says, oh, they have this already. And then but since it was already in the scope, it would then auto update, with the exception of a couple really big companies. But most of the time, it would just see it, and so deployment was at times seconds. Like if it saw it on there, it would just say, okay. But after that, obviously, your policy is meaningless. So after that, you would just delete the policy or disable them or whatever. But for most, not all of the apps, I had a couple unqualified because of maybe an old policy or something that it wasn't right. But for the most part, it does see that the app is already installed. And so it'll just say, okay, you're good. I'm going to report back that it's installed. It'll now be available for update when they come down.
Yep. Yeah, and the great thing is once that policy is disabled or deleted, it's not going to remove anything off the computer. Once you have a policy run within Jamf, even if you unscope the computer or you delete it, it's still going to remain in effect. Yeah, we got a question in the back there. Can I throw you the catch box?
Good luck, Adam.
I have a question. Is there any better logging for this from when it first launched? Like, there's pending and completed for,
Yeah. So that's something that's going to be coming up here in the limitations.
Oh, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be talking about that.
We're going to be talking about that real soon.
Yeah,
So-
and that's something that like today with policies, you have like very good verbose logging. It is something that today it is limited. The future of deploying applications and packages with Jamf Pro is the app catalog. And with a lot of these new changes here, I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that's already in the works. We'll just have to wait and see. Yeah, we got a question over here. Can we get the catch box just for everybody online? Whoa! Woo!
Not quite as good as my last catch. One thing we've noticed in the testing, and oddly enough, it's with Chrome, is that we'll get the pop out that says, "Hey, click here to update Chrome. There's an update available." Okay, so we go and click on it, and it applies the update, restarts Chrome, and blows away every single tab you have open. Not necessarily a problem for me, it's just an irritation. But for a teacher who keeps 20 tabs open because that's what her class schedule needs,
Sure.
that's a problem. The workaround is to simply close the dialog and go and just say relaunch
Yep.
when it relaunches, just like you normally would if Chrome notified you,
Yep.
on its own. You guys may be getting to. I just happen to notice in Chrome there is a checkbox if you have a specialty version of Chrome, let's say.
Yep.
There is a checkbox for install supporting configuration profiles.
Yes.
So there's options. If you've tweaked Chrome through a config profile, you've got support for that.
Yeah, and Chrome Enterprise gives you the ability to do a lot of neat stuff like that. So yeah, that config profile option there wasn't there a year ago, and that's something that we added because applications need it even for stuff like PPPC. Rich?
So my question has to do with the Mac App Installers scoping. So with the policy, one of the things you can do is you can scope to a group that's coming from your IDP or your directory service.
Yes.
Is that an option with the Mac App installs?
Yeah, that's actually not an option. We were going to be getting to that with the limitations here in just a moment, but as of today, you can only scope to smart groups. There are feature requests out there. Please, we have over 100 people in this room. Please upvote it. Because
Vote
we
often.
we do have a lot of customers, as an example, that have Entra tied into their Jamf Pro instance, and they have groups that they want to go ahead and scope to that they don't want to have to build out from scratch. So as of today, that's where one of the limitations with the Mac apps is, unfortunately, that when you come in here, you can only scope it to a smart group. With that being said, this does not match the rest of Jamf Pro. When you go to scope an App Store app, when you go to scope a config profile, when you go to scope a policy, you have the traditional scope where you can absolutely come in and you could scope to any kind of Active Directory group or anything from an identity provider. So I'd say this experience, because even things with exclusions and limitations, this experience is consistent throughout Jamf Pro with the exception of app installers. I would say that at Jamf we would want that experience to be consistent across the board. With the acquisition of Mondata and when we added this in here, I think we just wanted to make all you happy and make the app catalog available. And then there's those occasional tweaks and feature requests that we got to add in there. But Rich, that's definitely something that I'm super excited about because I have a ton of customers who are using Entra groups and they want to be able to utilize that. So great question.
All right.
Cool. I'm going to close out of here and I'm going to open up the keynote again. Let's see if
Are you still taking questions or no?
screen will behave. Yeah.
That gentleman had one.
Yeah. Can we throw the catch box?
So knowing that we're limited to smart groups for the time being, how bad of a practice is just nesting groups within your base smart group?
I personally don't nest, not when it comes
Yeah.
to this. Will that work?
Yeah, I would say
I would say that it does work, but
Every time?
yeah, as far as I know, it hasn't not worked.
Yeah.
But I've heard in other sessions, don't nest groups.
60% of the
Yeah,
time.
I'm not a
time.
fan of
Yeah.
nesting groups, but I mean, if it's working for the time, if it's working for the time being, and you haven't encountered any problems, cool. Our product team would probably love to talk to you. Yeah. Woo.
What I have noticed is that you do not need to have one instance of an app install. So you could create more than one instance and scope it to a different group.
Yes.
So if you had, let's say, 2 different departments, and you wanted to create a group for each department, each group could have its own instance of that particular app to install. And that's a way that I've sort of been
Yeah.
able to work
And
around
that's
that.
exactly what I do, but that could get very unwieldy very quick. You could have 6 versions of Microsoft Outlook before you know it. But yeah, that's one of the key ways of getting around smart groups.
And that's why we give you the option to have a display name when you do add the application. And it's also something like if you're using VPP and you deploy an App Store application, that's also something that you could do. You could add two apps. So yeah, great idea.
And just to add to that, like for example, different groups, different departments, if you need to deploy the app with a different configuration profile, that would be a good way to do that.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Cool.
You work with the vendor to get the app directly. When a vendor has more than one app, like an enterprise version, customer version, long-term version, do you get a choice of picking which version you want to install, or do you only get, this is what they give us?
Yeah, it depends on the vendor. So as an example, like Microsoft Teams, there's Microsoft Teams, and then there's the new Microsoft Teams.
Classic and
Yeah, so there's 2 versions in the app catalog. Also, some of the Adobe apps have that as well. So it really just depends on that agreement.
Yeah, and for a lot of them, like Microsoft, for example, they're being E3 licensed. As soon as someone signs in, they're going to get what they're going to get. So,
Cool.
all right. Anyone remember that movie? Come on, hurry up, Clint.
Man's got to know his limitations.
All right. Anybody in their 50s? Anybody remember the actor he was saying that to? Anyone? Hal Holbrook, the great Hal Holbrook. Now, his character was gone by that point. but that movie came out, I think, 73, 74, so right around when I was born. But yes, but we are now, thank you, Clint, on to limitations, which we've already touched on. But
Yeah.
the first thing you want to say with limited information, the information has gotten better, but what we want to highlight is what Adam was talking about, a managed command versus a policy, where a policy is like, since the beginning of time, with MDM, it goes, you get the package, it installs it on the temp folder, then it installs, then it deletes it, and you can scope it out to anything. When I first saw this, it was not apparent what to do. Okay, it was not apparent at all what to do in terms of how managed commands work, how this app catalog works. Why do I have to do a smart group? Why do I have 50 smart groups that have one machine in them? Because I can't scope it to a single machine. So that was one of the first gripes about, if you will, because there was a learning curve there in trying to figure out, okay, this is what we have to do. I cannot scope this the way we have normally done for the past 15 years or so.
Yeah, and like I don't even call it scope because it doesn't look like scope. It's just you're targeting that smart group. But hopefully, fingers crossed, hopefully we could get that changed.
And with limited information, we saw deployment status. Deployment status is basically in progress, completed. That's it. You could go onto the individual machine, see the manage command. If it failed, say, hey, is it still there? Is it still pending? Whatever. Other than that, there are very, very, very few tools to see exactly what went wrong so far. So, this is the eternal question with these apps. Okay? Now, remember, they're dealing with vendors who are going to work on their own time, so they don't have any control over that. But having said that, there have been times where I've had machines right next to each other, and we have deployed apps, and one machine got it within 10 minutes, and the other machine got it within 3 hours. And I don't have a progress bar. I don't have a clock. I don't have anything that can tell us exactly or precisely when that is coming down. That is a big thing, because if you're deploying to hundreds of people, and you've scheduled a block of a couple of days or a day or even hours, it's very, very difficult to do that when there's no information in terms of how long that's going to come down.
Yeah, and one of the most common requests is scheduling. Being able to go ahead and schedule when you want that application to be deployed. Yes, you can schedule the updates, as you guys seen earlier when we went into the end user experience, but being able to actually say, okay, we have Microsoft Edge, that's going to be our browser of choice. We want it to be deployed Sunday at midnight. That's when we want it to toggle on. It's something that's not there today, so that's definitely a limitation. Scoping, we already talked about this, but it's a lot different than standard Jamf scope that you see throughout the UI. Again, please submit feature requests. I'd love to have 100 feature requests or votes come in after here.
and keep in mind, the Apple Store, the Mac Apple Store part of this catalog, you can scope all the way down to an individual machine. But you can't do it for this, and you can only do one at a time unless you create another repository that sends it to another group.
Yeah.
So that is a severe limitation.
Yeah, nobody wants to make a smart group with a bunch of serial numbers. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not fun. Cool. And then occasionally I do get the request for uninstallers. So
This really bothers me because, all right, because what you're seeing managed commands. You're getting that install command from whatever location, from wherever repo it's coming down, okay? And the integer is either 0 or 1, whatever, right? It takes them nothing to say, okay, install to uninstall, change 1 back to 0 or whatever. That should be a feature today because there are so many apps that don't have an uninstaller. There are so many apps that don't have an uninstaller, and one of them, Microsoft, for example, trying to get rid of Microsoft apps without an uninstaller is quite a lot of fun. And so, again, these are managed commands. They should be able to send the exact same command with an uninstall command.
Yeah, great point, Dave.
And I have been asking for this for all 2 years. So. And there is one more, very common foe. We've come to this. Now, before we go to this next slide, Adam, don't push the button yet. All right? This is my seventh time at PSU Mac Admins. All right? There has not been one company, well, actually two, Apple and their wonderful OS updates, and this next one right here, which you can now do the slide. Now, remember, this could derail us. And we could talk about this for days as soon as it comes up. Keep pressing that button. There it is. All right? Okay, there it is. Our old friend. Okay, there's at least been 2 or 3 times where an Adobe rep has come in, scheduled a session, walked up in here like this, and then said, give it to me. And for the next 75 minutes, it was just him taking it all. Taking it all. Man, come on, Rich, you can't enjoy it. You can't enjoy Adobe updates.
I mean, when it comes to Adobe, my team isn't responsible for it.
So he says. And there's a couple things. Press that button again. There's a couple things that I have put in tickets that have gone way up in Jamf. And the first one is they do not auto-update at all. Okay? So I can understand it if they go from InDesign 23, InDesign 24, they don't want to auto-update it that way. That's a full upgrade. But they don't do point upgrades for even in 23 or 2024. Okay? And we've asked and we've asked and we've asked. Anyone here in the NYC Jamf user group? I actually brought this up to Mark Malacio, the senior engineer, and he said, put in a ticket now. And I didn't want to put in, so I went through Adam because he was my SC. And that went around 4 or 5 rounds, all the way up.
Yeah.
And basically they said, we don't have any answers for you. So, and there's another thing right there, plugins. Okay, there's a big one. Premiere Pro has a ton of plugins. All right, and a language pack, English language pack. If you don't have that, Adobe will just assume whatever language you want on your presentation. So, well, there's no such thing as plugins. You get a base app for Adobe. So in order to do that, you have to abandon the app catalog. And if you have admin rights to Adobe's console, you got to go get it. You got to build the package. You got to put the plugins in. You got to wait, a year for it to download. And then, at least now you can upload it without having to fix it, without having to flatten it or anything like that. Because 6 years ago, Jamf would not even take it. You had to repackage that whole thing, flatten it, zip it, and then kick it up. Now at least it keeps it up. But that takes a long, long time. And there's no way around that right now. So if I have to update Adobe on that team, for example, I can't use the app catalog. I have to go back in time and use the Adobe console. And so this, if you all seen me, I have bitched about this every year since I've been here. All right, because Adobe updates weren't so great before app catalogs, let's just say, and that reputation has currently gone into the app catalog. And I know it's a legal thing or anything like that, but whatever, but it's always a problem with patching with any Adobe product.
Yeah, and
so, all right, I'm off my soapbox. Go ahead.
yeah, and I mean, Adobe's always a fun subject for everybody great product, but yeah, when it comes down to updating it, it's not the same experience that you're going to get with most 90% of the other apps in the app catalog. I would love to be able to stand here and say why, but that ticket that Dave submitted is being worked, and hopefully something gets addressed with that. But that brings up a good point though, because when we were in this room a year ago, we weren't able to attach config profiles. So maybe Dave's gonna start a storm here.
Well, I mean, config profiles, they don't help me with this. So-
No, but I'm saying, like, you know,
Yeah,
maybe you're gonna start a
maybe-
storm where there'll be some kind of new thing that you could.
I've tried to do the storm. They've
Yeah.
got to get back to me. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
Anecdotally, in regard, what triggered this was when you mentioned the repackaging even, or non-auto updating even on the minor updates. Our school uses Walsworth console to do all of its yearbook stuff. Walsworth will not allow minor updates to be applied to whatever version of Adobe they have approved. They put their stamp on it, and they said, don't touch it until your yearbook is submitted. So granted, that's a somewhat small universe by Adobe standards of school yearbooks, but that's been a real pain point for us as well. And don't even get me started on the 205 error.
Rest the case. It's time to go to jury. So
Oh, I will not make the football team.
I was curious if you've tried using the Adobe Remote Update Manager.
oh yes. Well, okay. First of all, that's been around for a while. The Creative Cloud Updater, Creative Cloud app, that's been around for a while, and that's worked flawlessly. Many years. But I can't do it. I'm in a health insurance company. And so for lack of to make it sound so simple, Adobe keeps their apps on the same part of the cloud where you could store data, and that is banned at my company because of HIPAA and PHA and all of that. So I can't access the cloud to even get updates. So I can't even go through the Adobe Updater to update those apps. I wish I could. That way I wouldn't have to repackage every time those specific apps. But for us and for many of us, you know, those of us who have worked in banks, I look at you, Jeremy. And there's many obstacles that forbid us from attaching to the Adobe Cloud. All right, where are we?
Cool.
One more.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Jamf Admin?
Yeah,
Jamf Admin, what was the primary reason for getting rid of that? Was it just the indexing situation which allowed you to use uninstall?
yeah, I mean, we do have a new tool that you could use instead of Jamf Admin. We could chat afterwards about that if you'd like.
Having a little trouble with that, but I mean, you know, it's just
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that's like any package I made with Jamf Admin, it's worked
Yeah.
flawlessly unless I made a mistake. But now it's like I'm not sure if this stuff's working at all.
Okay.
They generally wanted you. They pointed almost everybody to the web. They wanted you to use the web for everything, one stop. I don't know about this new app.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it comes down to, yes, there are organizations where, believe it or not, they don't have a Mac that they could even run Jamf Admin or Jamf Composer on, and just not having those apps and trying to make things available through the UI as much as possible. But yeah, let's circle back afterwards on that. Cool.
I have one more question before we move on.
Yeah.
So one of the issues we run into, and maybe some of you have run into the same issue and you might have a suggestion, is you mentioned when using the app catalog, you can have more than one instance of the application and
Yep.
scope it to different groups. But what I was thinking about is, so you have one version of Google Chrome going to install automatically to all machines, and then I would like one for self-service. But the problem I'm running into is once you scope it, let me not use the word scope and use targets, because, yeah. Once you target it to all computers, and they have the application installed, then it renders them not qualified for self-service. Have you seen that?
I have not seen that myself, no.
Yeah,
So-
I don't know if anybody else has seen that, but yeah, you
Yeah.
can't run them both simultaneously. And the only way to get around that is if you uninstall it from the machine, then it's gonna appear for that particular machine in self-service. But the problem with that is that we can't trigger when Jamf is gonna see that this machine doesn't have Chrome installed anymore.
Okay.
So wait, what if you did one, and then a week later you did that second one? You would still run into the conflict?
I haven't done that because it didn't occur to me that maybe it's because,
Because if you,
Yeah.
I mean, I've almost always waited, because I've always thought there would be a conflict, because, so when I've had to do multiple instances, repos, however you want to call them, I've normally waited at least a couple days to
I mean, I
do
can
that.
try that.
And then you can try that and see. For the most part, that's worked for me. Granted, the second repo is generally only for a couple of machines. Generally, like the first one is to everyone except for those 3 that are out of the group.
Now, in the future, is there any way we can like trigger something using the command line to make app installers see that, okay, the application is no longer installed on the machine?
That
or-
would be wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, that would be great. And I apologize for keep saying submit feature requests, but we have a room full of over 100 people. So yeah, let's get that information in. Let's get that to Jamf's product team. Let's hear some of these frustrations, and I'm gonna share this recording with some of my colleagues at Jamf as well. But additionally, at the end, we're gonna have a QR code with feedback. Feel free to, even if you don't want to submit a feature request, just throw anything in that feedback, and I'll make sure that it gets to the right people. So by this time next year, when we do another session like this next year, I want to be able to come to you guys and say, hey, last year we had these issues, they're gone. So, cool. Finally, we're going to talk about managed software updates. So this is just a simple unified interface that allows you within Jamf Pro to go ahead and deploy software updates to your computers as well as your mobile devices. And it's super easy for you to go ahead and deploy those updates down onto those devices. So this is brand new with Jamf Pro 11.7. So it's been in beta since last fall. And we were getting a lot of questions. Hey, when is this coming out of beta? But we also got a lot of really good feedback from customers, and that's why we left it in beta for so long. And we had to work through, some roadblocks and challenges and things like that, but we got it to the point where it's working very well now. So in Jamf Pro 11.7, it is officially out of beta. It's going to allow you to go ahead and very easily schedule those macOS and iOS updates. Sometime in the future, at a date that's to be determined, the mass action software updates via smart groups are going to be deprecated. So although this is something that you may not be using today, if you have a Jamf sandbox, which all Jamf customers are entitled to a Jamf sandbox, you just got to request it through your customer success manager. Try this out in your Jamf sandbox. This is the future of software updates. I had somebody come up to the booth earlier and they were like, hey, what are you guys doing with declarative device management? This was one of the first things that we were doing back last September when iOS 17 dropped.
And keep in mind, and was anybody in Joe's from Meta's DDM class session? Okay, because Marcus from Jamf actually had screenshots of what this looked like. And it actually says declarative. And it actually has the logs in the VARDB software update directory that can actually go in there like through any other DDM and show you what process it's at and where it's failing. So this is really a huge deal. I haven't seen it other than the screenshots. So, but this is a huge, huge deal that we've been waiting for. The second thing is we wanted to have 2 sessions, one for app installers, the other one for software update. We only got one. But I built the deck for software update because I'm all about fun. And if anyone wants to see that, I'm at Temple_Dave at Slack or at Adam Derrick on Slack, and just let us know.
Yeah, and is anybody in the room going to be attending JNUC? Raise your hands. Okay, so a good crowd. So first and foremost, Dave and I are going to be presenting 2 sessions at JNUC in Nashville this year. So the first one is going to be very similar to this session, except condensed and maybe some content changed, because at JNUC we don't have the wonderful, gracious amount of time that we get here at Penn State. But we're also going to be doing a dedicated session on managed software updates. Additionally, Jamf has a booth. We're right across, if you go down by the mess hall, and the Mac Admins Foundation is there at the corner. We're right there. I will be there after this session. I will be there tomorrow morning. I do have a session on return to service if anybody's interested in the morning. But other than that, I will be at that booth. Please feel free to stop by. That's what we're here for. If you want to see some of this stuff more in depth. I did just want to show very quickly, just because we're at the 10-minute mark and I want to leave some room for additional questions. But the software update, it's accessible over here under content management. And you'll see you could target computer groups as well as mobile device groups. So again, we would just come in here, we would go ahead and select the smart group that we want to go ahead and update. So in this example here, I'm going to come in and choose my clinical computers.
And you could select as many as you want.
Yep. From here, this is where the DDM stuff comes into place. So being able to enforce an update deadline. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, hey, today's July 11th. By July 18th, you need to be running, and I'm going to say at midnight, you need to be running the latest version of macOS that your endpoint supports. From here, you go ahead and select apply, and what's going to go ahead and happen is it's going to go ahead and deploy those updates down onto those devices.
What it'll do is it'll send a managed command.
Yep.
Now, Apple will get to it when it wants to.
Yep.
You know, I've had 2 machines where one was updated in 20 minutes and the other one was updated in 5 hours. Okay, because Apple is going to Apple. But when this got updated, I think it was 11.5. It really pays to read the release notes and not be an idiot like I did. And I was on 13.5, whatever, and there was a point upgrade. And I didn't realize you could choose a specific version of OS just to upgrade. So I said, well, just put it to the latest one. And over Christmas, everybody got, well, about 50% of the people got to Sonoma.
Well, aren't you you're Santa Claus, right?
You know, over Christmas. So don't be like me. Read the release notes. See the interfaces. That specific OS, I always use that. I do not use that one. I use a specific one. I want to make sure that whatever I'm sending, that's what I want. Yeah. And that was a key thing that they added, I don't know, 6 months ago, less than a year ago.
Yeah, it was right after JNUC that we added that, and it's been in beta, so we got a lot of really good feedback. And like I mentioned, I just wanted to give you guys just a glimpse of what that looks like. Please test it out in your sandbox. Again, if you don't have a sandbox, hit up your customer success manager, tell them you want a sandbox so you could test. But at the end of the day, probably by this time next year, those mass action commands that were previously available that really were not super reliable are going to be deprecated. This process from the customers that I support that have been beta testing it for the last several months, I had somebody come up and hug me because they were so happy that they were able to schedule the updates. So although, again, when it was in beta, it wasn't perfect, but it was better than what we had. And it will only continue to get better.
We don't have time to talk about the imperfections.
Yeah.
Okay, because there's plenty of them. Hopefully with this new version, the behavior is a lot more stable, which it was not in the earlier versions as a beta.
We got 5 minutes left for Q&A. Before we head into that, if you could please take a picture of this QR code and submit feedback. We would greatly appreciate that. Again, you could put any questions in there and I'll follow up with you. And we're going to pass the catch box around.
All right, real quick, and hopefully this will be a moot point in 6 months or less. DDM software updates on-prem?
Are
They available for on-prem?
Yeah, for on-prem or cloud. Yeah.
Okay.
Jeremy.
You showed enabling a Jamf App Installer or disabling that option. Do you have an option for when you have a change advisory board type of situation and you have to approve individual updates before they're released to your devices?
What was that question?
So for anybody else who couldn't hear, the question was, we showed deploying an application through the app catalog. If there's a change advisory board, things like that you need to go ahead and validate and test before you deploy to the mass. What are you doing?
What am I doing is I'm creating a special smart group that I'm just sending that app to if I need to test.
And then
And you know, and there are times I need to do that. Not everybody wants the update. We have to test them.
Is that a separate app then that you've added?
Yeah, that's a separate one. And if I have to uninstall, well, that would be a great feature if they had it. So.
Cool. Got some good catches in here.
Thanks. All right, so is best practice for a lab environment where we need to version lock still going to be to download that Adobe package manually and from an admin console Adobe and create
Yes.
a policy and upload that package?
Yes.
The whole nine?
If you
Okay.
need anything other than the base app, you're going to have to go to Adobe.
Okay, so, but in this example, we could potentially have another user group who, through Mac App,
Yeah.
Mac App Catalog does get those updates, assuming they work with that product.
Assuming they work with that
All right.
product. I haven't seen any Creative Cloud app that has been auto-updated.
Oh, so it's really, so,
I'm talking zero.
so,
Okay.
pointed question, why are they all up there?
Well, anybody
Sorry.
here from Adobe?
To get
The
them,
floor is yours.
to get them deployed.
So you mentioned that there is a internal process and a partnership when you guys are deploying the updated version of the app. For GitHub applications, is there a white paper or something I can put my CISO at of what the internal code review process is for new updates, especially on open source apps?
We don't have anything public
Yeah.
facing at the moment.
Yep, okay.
I mean, Git has been absolutely wonderful in terms of it's a perfect tool for them
I
to get as
agree,
many
but-
of their apps out as possible.
Yeah.
So they've been very, very open in terms of the apps, whatever apps they want presented. But as
Yeah.
far as that process, yeah, basically he gave you the answer.
Yep, okay.
Oh,
Anybody?
let everybody fight. We're going to hang around for a couple minutes too,
So-
so don't feel like you need to rush out.
So a bit of an observation. Our organization is heavily into Monkey and auto package, using that, and this has been so far a bit of a letdown and very much a change in thought process on how to. Well, we want to do it this way, how we've been doing it, but this is a new way. Things like, how long is this going to take? No idea. The things we talked about. One issue that we've been really noticing is the app's already installed. We create this new Mac apps thing, and then it does not detect, or it takes forever to detect that app's installed on the machine. And it's like, is it ever going to? I don't know. No idea. And then it's like, is it broken? I don't know. There's no way to find out. And then someone had asked about testing if you need to sit on a specific app. What we've done is, in our testing of this, is create two separate instances and then set to manually, so that way Jamf App, Mac App says, hey, there's an update available, do you want to change to this one? And then we say, go ahead and change to it, and then we test with that, and then later we release that to the next group, that's the production group. So it works a little bit finicky, but not quite the same as Monkey, but it gets there, I guess.
Good workflow. Thank you.
All right, we have less than a minute. Before we get to more questions, I just want to acknowledge a few people. Actually, I want to, of course, Adam and Jamf. He's been the best SE. And I've been with Jamf since 2006 when it was Casper the Friendly Ghost. I want to acknowledge PSU Mac admins. They do such a great job. Rusty, Gretchen, I wish there were 10 Gretchens so one of them get to sleep. and finally, the Mac Admins Foundation. I'm a proud member and I'm proud to wear this. I want to acknowledge them for saving the Slack Mac group, which has been so instrumental in all of our lives. And if you could be a part of this, donate, volunteer, be a mentor, this is a wonderful, wonderful organization. That's one of the founders right there with Rich. So anyway, thank you very much.